What's going on? This is Brett Snodgrass with the Brett Snodgrass podcast, and I have Nathan Brooks. He is back by popular demand with me today. He was also on episode 52 on the Brett Snodgrass podcast, and he's back again because you guys wanted him because he's awesome, and he just has a new book called The No Quitter's Guide to Crushing Real Estate Investing and Building an Extraordinary Life. So if you don't know Nathan Brooks, he's just an extraordinary person. He is passionate. He has a family. He crushes it at real estate. He's an MMA fighter. He started golfing last year. He did an elk hunt in the middle of where no one goes in Idaho. He does some crazy, extraordinary things. He's an author. He's a blogger for Bigger Pockets, and he's just an amazing person. And he's very passionate about what does it look like to live an extraordinary life. That's the question I want to ask you guys today. What would it look like for you to live your most extraordinary life, your most fulfilled life? What does that look like? And I want you to start reflecting and thinking about that. And he basically, that's where he starts, and then he works backwards to figure out, can real estate investing help you get to that extraordinary life? So that's his book, No Quitter's Guide to Crushing It Real Estate Investing and Building an Extraordinary Life. Before I get into introducing Nathan Brooks, I want you guys to go over to our website, irondeep.com. We have a Men's Awakening retreat. So if you're a business owner and you're looking for more, not more money, but more than success. If you're looking for more identity in your life, more purpose, and leaving that truest legacy that God is calling you to, I want you guys to go to irondeep.com and apply for the Men's Awakening Retreat coming March 13th through the 16th, 2023. It is in Zion, near Zion National Park in the Red Rocks. So we rent out a couple of houses. It's going to be amazing. We're looking for a small group of men that want to go deeper. They want to go deeper with their relationship with God, and they want to go deeper and take off the mask with their relationship with other like-minded guys, business owners. So it's going to be amazing. Go check it out at irondeep.com. And make sure you guys apply for that. I'm going to reach out to you personally. So check that out. Also on our YouTube channel, check out the Iron Deep channel. We got videos coming out each and every week, and we're going to have more faces, more voices, people speaking into the message of Iron Deep, men living more for more than success, living for more identity, purpose, and legacy in their life. So check that out. Now I want to introduce you guys to my good friend, Nathan Brooks. What's going on? I'm back by popular demand. Nathan Brooks is on the podcast with me. What's going on, brother?
Oh, my brother, it's so good to be back, my friend.
Yes, I'm super excited, man. If you don't know Nathan Brooks, he was on podcast episode 52. Go check that out. He talked about his incredible life. Obviously, a very successful businessman, real estate investor, entrepreneur, does some crazy adventures in life like elk hunting, and does 15-day journeys through the mountains, just crazy stuff. So MMA fighter. I don't know what else to say about you, man. You're just taking up golf last time, worship leader, like the list goes on. Writer now, author. It's amazing, man. Like the list goes on. What else you do? Like crazy.
Man, played music professionally for a while. Yeah, the golf thing, man. Actually, I shot in the 80s at the end of this summer.
Wow. That's
so not bad for my first full year of playing.
That's right.
Yeah. Now, I won't say I always shoot in the 80s. That would be a big lie. But
that's great, man. I try to break 100. If I break 100, I'm pretty good. I play a couple times a year with my dad. He's a big golfer, but yeah, that's me. He shoots in the 70s, but yeah, that's awesome, man.
Dude, the 70s is no joke. There's a big difference between the, I'm normally like a high mid to high 90s.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. Well, thanks for getting back, man. I'm super excited. You have a new book coming out, and I know we're going to really dig into that. It's the No Quitter's Guide to Crushing Real Estate Investing and Building an Extraordinary Life. So that's coming out, January 10th, 2023?
Yep, January 10th.
Yeah, man. Super excited about that. So what's this journey been like? You wrote a new book. I know you're a writer anyways. You blog for Bigger Pockets. You do some other writing as well. But this, you got me into writing. Like, you mentioned on the last show, I was like, well, I want to write a book too. So you introduced me to some people, and I have a writing coach who's been your writing
Yeah.
coach. But what's the journey been like? Writing a book. Everyone wants to write a book. Hardly anyone does. What's that been like for you?
Man, such a great point. And yes, Ashley, the coach, is awesome. I'm so excited that was a fit for you too. And uh, the book writing thing started probably, I don't know, 2 or 3 years ago at least. And, like you said, I think a lot of people dream about writing books. I'm sitting at my desk here and, I'm thinking, there's so many books that have inspired us to do, cool stuff. And I have another book over here, a buddy of mine who wrote his book, who also introduced me to Ashley. So it's kind of cool to
That's
see
awesome.
the lineage. Yeah. But books are so important. They're so impactful. And I think, when you look at what is the most uh, thing of value for the 80/20 of learning, books I think are at the top,
Mm,
other than personal relationships, like amazing people like you being able to have connections we had through masterminds or whatever. But
mm,
when you can just go learn, or a podcast or audiobook or whatever, they're so impactful. And you can reach so many people for such a small amount, or go to the library and you can literally get it for free. And so, you know over the years, I don't know how many books I read, hundreds of books. And so to think about all the people who have inspired me and helped me learn. And so when I started to have the concepts from my own book, I was like, man, if I could just help impact, you know, first is like one person, and I have bigger goals than that. But, I want to help, and I want to say, like, how can we take in our real estate industry or business industry, and bring something that I think is a little more of, realistically what people want to create and not what people talk about creating.
mm.
And so that's why I was motivated to write it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's such good. You're exactly right. I mean, most of the best things that I've learned is through books, and I still have like there's a few that I just go to. I read them like every single year, and it's just been an awesome journey for me. So thank you for advising me. And if you guys are interested in writing, talk to myself, talk to Nathan. I would recommend if
Hmm.
getting someone, a team around you, like Ashley has helped us write the book, and just building that team is so important. Just like any type of organization or business. So Nathan, you wrote No Quitter's Guide to Crushing Real Estate Investing, Building an Extraordinary Life. If you could say like one thing about this book, like someone should get this book, maybe a pitch, maybe some sort of inspiration of why should someone get this? What is different and unique about this book rather than, some of the other real estate investing books?
Sure. I'll take two quick different approaches on that. So, Brandon Turner, who you may or may not know, people may or may not know, he used to be the Bigger Pockets podcast host, or one of them. And he has probably 8 of the top 10 real estate books on the charts. He's an absolute monster. So he wrote the foreword to my book, and he said basically, you could go get a dozen real estate books, or you could just go buy mine.
Mm,
And the distillation of information of not just like uh, a real estate 101 concept, but in my book, it was not just like, okay, let's start from where you are. Let's understand where you are. Where do you want to go? What are some steps to actually get to that place and create a vision for what you want your life to look like? Here's some real estate 101 to paint a picture of what that could look like. And then let's do some vision setting on that type of business. What is it? How does it operate? How big is it? How much money does it need to make? And then and then that building an extraordinary life piece, which I think so many people miss, which is we become, including myself, let's do more deals, make more money, do more deals, make more money. And then we forget, like, oh no, this whole thing was about something that we wanted, you know.
mm,
And and the realization that money's wonderful. It's a wonderful tool, but it's a tool.
Mm.
And so we don't work for money. We work to, we want the money to be able to use it as a tool to do cool stuff like travel the world, go on an elk hunt in the middle of nowhere, you know, have philanthropy opportunities to make an impact in the world, take your family on vacation, live in a cool spot, and so I think it's easy to get to lose track of that.
Yeah. So you kind of take the book and you really start with the extraordinary life first. So
Hmm.
this is like the first part of it. Really start with that vision and start really just digging into the extraordinary life. And how much time do you spend, maybe a year or just thinking about your life, the extraordinary life? Because sometimes like we do that one time and then you're right, we get in the trap, we get in the wheel, we forget about it. And then we wake up one day like, wait a minute, I was wanting something different. What
Yeah.
did I want again?
Well,
You forget.
and you do forget, and I wrote a book about this, and I still forget. So let's be clear, I'm not perfect by any means, but I would say, so I've been hot and cold lately on journaling, but for many years I've been very very much an avid journaler. But there's a couple different things that I do personally. I have a giant whiteboard that I can see. I'm in my home office right here, but there's a giant 4x8 whiteboard, and it has, all the goals and all the ideas for the year, and it exists there. And then, I fly pretty frequently, and I keep a bunch of different notes between Evernote and Apple's, note program, whatever it's called, and I will take notes, including with my family. So we started January 1, and we took notes on a bunch of different stuff as a family. Like, what do we want to do? Where do we want to go? What experiences do we want to have? And we went through, my wife and my two kiddos, and we wrote those things down. And we said, hey, we might not be able to do all of these things, but let's prioritize what might be most of interest that we want to do, and then let's start knocking stuff off the list. And then, between that and notes I have for myself, like, hey, whether it's business related or whether it's, motivation related of workouts or in the gym or, training or playing golf or whatever. And just what are all those things? So you can constantly bring that back and have it as a reminder or
Yeah.
make an adjustment,
Yeah.
right? If it's like, man, this is not fitting. I know I wrote it down. I know I made it a goal. Guess what? It's okay. You can change the goal. Uh, if it's not fitting, then let's not work at it. Let's figure out why it doesn't fit, and
Yeah.
make an adjustment.
I love that. So when you sit down with how old are your kids again?
Mine, so my daughter just turned 9 this week, and my son is just a couple weeks away from 12. So yeah,
Awesome.
12 and 9.
Awesome. So what is that like? So I know as business owners, we're setting goals all the time. You got your whiteboard out. You write down Nathan Brooks' goals. I want to travel the world and do an elk hunt, and I want to do MMA fighting in a ring. All the stuff that you want to do. Play golf. What are some
The
things that
normal
your
stuff.
yeah, normal stuff anybody does. But what are some things like that comes out of your kid's mouth, the 12 and 9-year old? Like what's something like you sit down and you're like, what do you guys want? Like what is there something that what do they say? I'm
Yeah,
just
it's a great
curious.
it's a great question. So, places we've traveled as a family: Hawaii, Florida. My son and I, we love going fishing together. So, fishing's on there. We had some new destinations, so Costa Rica or, somewhere in Europe. And actually, for this coming year, we actually are taking a trip to Spain. So New Year's will be literally in New York, and then headed to Spain for a week. And one of those things too, where, hey, we're on a trip and we can have the same conversation now, and not only are we having an extraordinary experience, but we can talk about, what our future plans are.
Mm,
And so, my daughter, like, daddy daughter dates. She loves to go for car rides in our fun car, and just hang out time.
yeah.
But at least, you're like, okay, well, this came out of their mouth. That's what they're thinking about,
Hmm.
and then we can really, honor that, and find ways to have more time together.
Yeah. No, I love that. I think you put a post on social media, maybe it might have been Facebook, but you talked about kind of money as a tool number one, but you also talked about the experiences. I think everything that you mentioned right now has always just been some sort of experience, whether you're
Mhm.
experiencing it or your family. A lot of it's travel, but even some of the really cool things. I think you like to experience things, and you think that's really what life and kind of living that extraordinary life is. How are you experiencing life, right, and what you want and
Mhm.
desire. So like I don't know, I put that out there, but like it seems like when you really start to think about you start to think about experiences. I haven't heard you say a lot of all right, money gets you to these things, but I haven't heard you say some of these other things. Like I want I don't know some of the material things I guess, but you keep talking about experiences. It sounds like.
Yeah, I can't say that I didn't go and eventually buy a good sized house and have some
Mm-hmm.
property.
Yeah.
That's where I live. I'm staring out the back 40 of my house right now, and um, I own a Porsche 911. I did go buy the fun fancy car, but it was something I wanted since I was like a teenager, and I always wanted it. I always wanted that same car, and I love it. I love driving it, and I love taking my kids for rides in it, and it brings me joy. And so, sure, do I think it's cool if people like my car? Yeah, of
Mm-hmm.
course I do.
Yeah.
It's cool. It's a cool car,
Yeah.
and you know, I- over the years, I've bought a couple of nice watches and stuff. But I think there's an interesting thing that happens as the dichotomy between are you making money for the sake of making money? And some people just like that and
Mm-hmm.
they're money motivated. I just the more I thought about it and spent time on like what really brings me joy in life, it wasn't making money. Like I enjoy building a business. I enjoy having cool people to interact with. I enjoy having my team. I enjoy building Airbnb houses and creating cool destinations and experiences. But when I really got back to it, it was like how little amount of money. And actually, I think Tim Ferriss talks about that in that 4 Hour Work Week book, right? Like, what does it actually cost me to build this this
Yeah.
life that I want?
Yeah.
And I think for most people, when you really look at that, it's less money than you think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I agree because a lot of the experiences you talk about, even your kids. That's why I ask, and a lot of them don't cost a lot of money. Like, oh, your son wants to go fishing, your daughter wants to take a ride in a cool car. It doesn't cost you that
Yeah,
anything. Just the time, right?
just the time.
Yeah,
Yeah, just the time and put fuel in the car,
yeah,
right? I mean, now granted you had to buy it, but it doesn't mean you don't need to go buy a 911 to take your kid for a park date,
yeah,
um, and they'll love you just as much.
yeah.
So and I think it's also like this is one of the hard parts for me is to slow down enough to be in tune with what's being asked. So it's I think it's if you're a disciplined person and you are setting goals and you are working on that stuff for you yourself, I think it's pretty easy to be focused, pretty easy to be working on those things for you, for your family. But it's another thing to actually hear your kid say, "Hey, Dad, will you go throw the baseball with me?"
Mm-hmm.
"Hey, will you come build Legos with me?" And slow my manic mind down enough to settle down and say, "Oh yeah, no, I don't need to go make 5 more calls or pretend I'm busy and scrolling through social media or
Right.
whatever nonsense is going on." And recommit to say like, okay, well, hey, what is most important?
Mm, mm. I love that. How much time do you kind of spend just in that reflective mode? Like, do you have some sort of like discipline where you are kind of in that reflective mode about just recalibrating, reprioritizing? Is that a weekly thing, monthly thing, quarterly thing? Do you ever go away on your own and do that? Just recalibrate. Seems like you keep coming back to you're a very reflective person, I believe, right? It's
Mhm.
probably sometimes this isn't a rhythm either. It's like just on the dime, like, okay, my kid wants to go play Legos. Let me reflect on that. What's most important? But
Yes. And and I would use the line when I'm at my best, because I think there's moments when I'm not at my best or I'm tired or whatever, and I don't do a good job of that. But I would say, it's an interesting question because I don't know if I could say that I have had a specific time all the time set out, but I'm an avid cigar smoker, and I often will find myself a couple times a week with an hour of just thinking time by myself in the woods, quiet in nature, and I think by or the last 4 days I've been in the woods, hunting. So I've spent 30 hours
Mm-hmm.
in the quiet, and and I think just by nature of being an experience, it's almost inevitable to have those thoughts.
Yeah.
Um, and we mentioned an elk hunt, and I was in Idaho. They call it Frank Wilderness River of No Return is the full name of that area, and it's
Gotcha.
like 2.3 million acres
Wow.
of the most pristine, amazing wilderness. And so I'll just paint the picture real quick. So we drive into the middle of nowhere, get on a bush plane, and fly in an hour at 110 miles an hour at 5,600 feet in between mountaintops. Into the middle further of nowhere. We bank at 40 degrees or 35 degrees or whatever it was, where you literally the plane is so sideways you're looking straight down at the ground to make sure there was no elk or horses or whatever on the runway. You fly in onto this dirt runway, land, and there's literally five horses and five mules, and for the next 7 days everything that we had with us, every bit of food, clothes, rifle, whatever, was literally on those
Mm.
animals. And I was with a buddy of mine, and he runs an even bigger business than me. And he and I were like back and forth talking in the evening, or as we're sitting and pondering each other's businesses and what's going on. And it was interesting. At one point, he literally said, he's like, I thought last night, and I was thinking like 3 to 5 years, I had to work all this time to create this, monetary result, which would allow me to, effectively retire and put it into syndications or whatever he was going to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, I realized I could have the same result right now
Mm.
if I just change this thing and this thing and this thing. And it's like, if we don't spend time thinking about the actual problem we're trying to solve, in reality, a lot of times that problem or that the answer to that problem is right in front of us,
Mm-hmm.
but we don't take the time to actually settle into it
Yeah.
and reflect on what we really want. One, and then number two, like how do we actually solve it?
Yeah. That's awesome. I love that. Sometimes the answers come in the most unsuspected places, and I think there's just something about you talked about the again it's just these experiences, just doing that experience with this elk hunt, and it's almost like I think a lot of men we want to go to these unique experiences, almost like where very few men have been, right? And I
Yes.
think that's probably what probably enticed you. Like I want to go walk where few people have walked, and just to go through that experience is really really awesome. Wouldn't you say? Like I mean, I think that's how my soul is too, is just to kind of go to these places. So that's awesome. Same thing with
It
business.
is. Yep.
Yeah, same thing with business. So let's get into obviously you talk about kind of just you go through building out this extraordinary life, what you want, and then obviously do you dial it down to real estate then? Because obviously real estate has given you the platform to do some of these things, to have these options, right? So do you break it down into that, and what is it like? Is it for like beginner real estate investors? Is it for more seasoned anyone? Talk to us about this. You build this extraordinary life, and then the book goes into how's it relate to real estate?
Yep. So I'm looking at the book right here. It's kind of cool. This is the final edit copy
Nice.
before it went to the publisher, so it still has all the marks and everything. But when I look at, so chapter one is like, what's the problem if I could change my life? Because I,
Mm-hmm.
I do feel like almost all the time when I have these conversations, people are like, man, I really hate my job, or I really wish I was doing this thing. So it's like, all right, where are we starting from? We're actually starting from, okay, if I really could if only I could change my life. Wait a minute, you can change your life. Like, what do you do? And so then, what do you do about it? And then, I spent a whole chapter talking about real estate done wrong,
Mm-hmm.
like broken mindset, broken thoughts. How are we, you know, we make money the entire focus, uh, missing a vision, kind of what we've talked about, right?
Mm-hmm.
So as far as like what it's made for, I really do believe it's either, you know, coming from a writer perspective, when you think about like the you want to have a niche, but also want to have as wide of an opportunity as possible. And so, I think somebody who's new could get a vision for what kind of business they wanted to create. And also sometimes I think people have a really hard time even saying like, Brett, I don't know if I am successful, like what do I do?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like what do I do? I can't even conceptualize what that looks like,
Mm-hmm.
which is hard for me to believe because that's kind of or it's hard for me because that's naturally where my brain goes, but not everybody does that.
Mm-hmm.
And then, there's real estate 101. So it talks you through that. And then there's vision setting too. So I think even if you have a business and you have, something already really going well, what are the things that you could take from that business to, whether it's, you know, allocating money, allocating time, allocating resources to creating that extraordinary life in your own space or in your own business? I think, it's totally applicable here.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's it's crazy how like just real estate and just the freedom and the options that it brings. I mean, I talked to like I have a 15-year-old daughter, so we've been talking about what does she want to do, and I have some other friends and talk about kind of what their vision is for their life and what they want to do, and I have my sons coming up too, and they're younger now, but just like how do I teach them just about some of these different things, and even myself, my mindset sometimes gets shrunk. Right? I mean, we
Hmm.
deal with that, and I think it all does start with mindset. That if you can think these bigger things. So like my mindset has been like, we flip, we wholesale some houses, we make, some money on that. But my mindset is how do I think a little bit bigger than that? And I think you think big too. How do I think, could I do the same thing with an apartment building or commercial land or something like that? Instead of making, 10 or 20 grand on a deal, could I make 100? Could I make 1 million? Right. And it's like, yeah, it's all the same type of process, but this is what it does, right? It's like, I don't know, you start thinking big and you can just have all this freedom. So that's awesome. So you kind of go into that a little bit. And so is this book, does it have like a lot of the strategy nuts and bolts of real estate? Or is it really, obviously you want to create this extraordinary life and create this vision for it. And then it has
Yeah.
some avenues with real estate.
Yeah. So I don't know if it's helpful just kind of talk through
Yeah.
the chapter real quick. But so basically, chapter one, the problem if I could change my life. Chapter two, are you doing something that you love, right? So let's make sure we don't trade one thing for another thing that you don't like.
Mm-hmm.
Chapter three, real estate done wrong, like I just mentioned. So, like, what are the things that actually detract from what's really trying to happen? And there's people out there doing this all the time, which drives me absolutely insane. This is not a guru book. This is not you know, a top of lead funnel book. Like I really wanted it to be impactful and something that really would be a tool to help.
Mm-hmm.
So chapter four, quitters never prosper. So don't quit. Like and that was the whole concept, right? No quitters guide. Everybody has problems. Everybody has trouble. Everybody has issues. I'm no different. I'm sure Brett's no different. I won't speak for you, but
Mm-hmm.
uh, so chapter number five, real estate done right. So like, what are ways that it's really worked for people? And there's some examples of people, friends of mine, in my own business. And then chapter six, the vision. So like, let's start to lay out the actual vision of this is how we do it right. This is now what I actually want it to look like. And then I go into chapter seven, real estate 101, like types of businesses. Um, Chapter eight is the secret weapons of the no quitter, the
Mm-hmm.
why, the imperfect action, and being a go giver. And from the beginning, I really push, like, it's not just about you. It's not just about you,
Mm-hmm.
not just about me. Number nine, no quitter diagnostics. So, like, defining what personal achievement is, financial success, being prepared to succeed, what's under the current financial hood. So, like, talking through people, uh, what do they actually want, but also let's get a grasp of where we are and then where we're going,
Mm-hmm.
and then creating the actual plan, executing the plan, uh, and then no quitter path success in the execution. So, like, what's the day to day look like of actually being successful? And then chapter 13, extraordinary life, living into generosity, doing amazing things, challenging yourself. And I'll just mention too, it's kind of fun to have 13 chapters because I am on a 13, born on the 13th. My wife is born on the 13th. My two kids are born on
Oh, wow.
13. So it's kind
That's
of,
crazy.
yeah. And my book launch or release, obviously the 10th is the release, but then I'm having a party in KC, which just getting the nuts and bolts together, but it's also on a Friday the 13th of
That's
January.
awesome.
So it's pretty
That's so
hilarious.
cool. That's awesome. Well, I
Yeah.
love it. I love it, man. And so obviously, I was wanting to talk about the title too, just a no quitters guide. So talk about that maybe in your own life. I mean, is this
Mhm.
when I read that, it was almost like there has to be some meaning behind that for you, right? I mean, is there maybe
Yes.
points of your of your journey of where like that you really had to hang on to that? Maybe you didn't believe
Yeah.
it at the time, but you're like, I gotta, hang on to that meaning in that phrase.
Yes. And I think it happens all the time. And actually, I'm pulling something up here real quick because the one of my most favorite quotes is the man in the arena. So I'm just going to read this real quick.
Yeah.
So it is not the critic who counts, not the man who stumbles out, or how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who's actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes up short again and again, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at worst, if he fails, at least he fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know nor victory nor defeat.
Mm, wow.
And the no quitter thing to me is a reminder. I've I've goosebumps, by the way. That
Yeah.
quote is just,
Me too.
it was on the back of my fight shirt for my fight too. It's one of those things where uh it's I think there's a lot of cliche things out, and cliches are cliches for a reason, right? Because a lot of them are true in some essence. But don't quit.
Mm,
You know, how bad do you want it? How bad do you want to create that life? How bad do you want to take your family on vacation? How bad do you really not want to work on that job anymore, or want to do cool stuff with your kids, or go on the side of a mountain, or whatever it is, whatever those things are for you?
I love
How
that.
bad do you want it?
Yeah. I love that.
And and then how do we support each other? Like, if you're having a tough day or I'm having a tough day, like, hey, Nathan, what's going on, man? Hey, you got this. Keep after it.
Mm,
Don't stop. Don't quit. Don't commit to something that, if this is really something that you want, how bad do you want it?
mm,
And then that's the other reason in the book that I wanted to go through the vision setting, and, like, what does it look and feel like when we put our brain in a state of visualization of what we could actually experience. And our brain doesn't know the difference between the story we're telling it and the experience. All
mm-hmm.
we know is we've created this visualization in our mind and what we're doing. And so if you're constantly thinking about negative stuff and you're constantly thinking about what's not working, what do you think's going to happen?
Mm. Yeah. No, for sure. I love that. Just how bad you want. I love your quote that you just read. I just kind of wrote down, I would much rather risk and fail than to not try. I mean, I think that's where I come again, and I do some things that I could totally bomb at and totally fail at and get embarrassed and humiliated. But I'm like, you know what? I'd rather risk it and just fail and fall flat on my face than to not try. You never know. And
Yeah.
that's where I'm
Well,
at.
me too. Well, and I fail at stuff all the time.
Yeah.
I feel in this current, real estate market, it's not particularly fun.
Yeah.
There's a lot of challenges in the market. There's less, demand in some respects and more opportunity in others. And again, it's like, all right, well, what did you build it for? Like in all reality, I actually believe markets like this make us come back to that question.
Yeah.
Because all of a sudden we're saying, well, why is my overhead in my company so high? What are the things that I actually like doing? What is it that our company's doing and that I'm responsible for? Am I doing a good job as a CEO or, leading my team, having a clear vision? Why did I get into this business in the first place? And, I've personally been having a lot of those questions and a lot of those thoughts and also having a lot of those conversations.
Mm.
And I think it's a really healthy, wonderful thing even in the midst of being uncomfortable.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
A word that kind of came back to me just this morning was like, because a lot of people, especially seasoned real estate investors right now, they're kind of having some fear around what's happening in the market. They're losing some money.
yeah,
And they're kind of in that survival mode that I've seen.
yep,
And just words that came back to me, I was like, man, just what an opportunity. I feel like the Lord was just telling me is like, start preparing for the opportunity before you,
yeah.
you know?
Start preparing and have already made the decision that something wonderful is going to actually happen,
Mm-hmm.
and we don't even know necessarily what it is, right?
Yeah.
But where you put your focus is where you get your result. Like no matter what, there's no other way to create it because whatever you focus on is what your mind consciously and subconsciously is going to spend its time solving.
Mm.
So, what problem? So I know for us, like for instance, we transitioned out of doing lots of renovations. We were doing, 100, 150 renovations a year, which, when I look back at it, Brett, I'm like, number one, I wish I would have sold half those houses and I kept half of them.
Right.
And number two, I don't like flipping that many.
Mm.
It kind of
Yeah.
sucks.
Yeah.
Like that. So, okay, well, I don't want to do that. No problem. I don't need a business built for that.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking of, big deals, we did a partnership deal this year that, netted. It was our first, my first 7-figure deal. I'd
Mm.
never been in a deal like that. And
Mm-hmm.
it went very well. There's still some uh pieces of it that needs to close, but majority of it has. And so it's one of those things where it's like, wow, okay, that that was a lot easier than
Yeah.
I
Right.
anticipated,
Right.
uh and also, just coming back to what do I want to do? Like, what do I want to have my experience? When I got into real estate, it was to buy and hold, it was to build a portfolio, it was to create wealth through that. And, I have spent the last 6 months really working on that
Yeah. Yeah. And thinking, reflecting
because
through that.
yeah,
Yeah. I think we all have that. I mean, it's crazy how we get into this real estate game, and I've been doing that too. I've been reflecting on what I want. It's because like I woke up. I mean, I don't really like a lot of the single family rentals and stuff like that. And I started buying some to save on taxes. But then, anyways, long story short, I wake up one day and I'm like, wow, I got a lot of rentals and they're kind of a headache. And I asked, whether they're good or bad for me. I'm just like, well, what do I want? Do I want that, or do I want that in my life, or a headache? Or do I want to do something else? So yeah, we're always pivoting, we're always reflecting on that. And I asked my wife the other day, so sometimes we ask these questions, and so we're dealing with some stuff like with our kids, and my one son, he's kind of been off the rails with some ADHD stuff, getting behind in school, just stuff like that, and some of our other family stuff has just been kind of like a little wonky. And I asked her, I was like, what's one thing that we could do and focus on right now that would just make everything else a little bit easier, a little simpler in our life? So like, that's a question that I love to ask. Like, maybe it's not even a real estate thing, but what's one thing that you can do or focus on that could make everything else a little bit easier? Maybe it's your health, right?
yep,
I
yep.
don't know. So I love reflecting on things like that. So Nathan, thank you so much. I know
It's a great question.
we're about out of time, but I want to give you just maybe one last question. So let's say someone does kind of go down this road and they create this vision of their extraordinary life. They start to build this real estate empire like you. And what's like one thing that they're going to face? I mean, you've been in this for years now. So what's one thing that you can just tell them, look, you're going to, even if you make it to this top of the mountain in the business world, what's something that they're going to, face when they're there?
Well, there's a couple things that show up for me. I think number one, it's your own. It's dealing with yourself, and the opportunity as you scale and grow. You need to grow, and you need to learn more and more about yourself, learn more and more about what it is to be a leader. Because as you have people on your team, you have employees, whatever you call it, you know that's a responsibility. It's a huge responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's number one. I think number two is as you get bigger, or you get more known, or your business is more successful, you have more opportunities too. And boy, am I preaching to the choir on this, but uh, you know, the ability to say no,
Mm-hmm.
and saying no is a wonderful thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's either a hell yes or a no, and it
Mm-hmm.
needs to be one or the other. And I didn't make that up either. Richard Branson,
Yeah.
uh, but it's so true, right? And then if it is a yes, then what are the other things that are a no?
Yeah. And
And
I love that too, because it also depends a lot on your season. I mean, so when I first
mhm,
started, I mean, I was single. I could do a lot of stuff, but now I,
yeah,
have a wife. I have 4 kids. Everything's calling for my attention. Got a few businesses and employees, and you got to
yeah,
be really particular.
yeah. Well, and I would say the other thing that has showed up for me later, I'm 41 now. When I think in my 20s, I was playing music professionally, and I was out till 2 in the morning, and like you said, single, and
Hmm.
you know, living the life. It was a blast, right? But what coming back to that, like, what do you actually want, uh, and what does that look like? Because it's very easy for that to get off the rails. And then the last thing is, I would say, if you're not constantly challenging yourself with something, you're not growing, and
Mm.
you're it's so easy to get comfortable. And whether that's playing golf, or you don't have to get in a cage fight, but training jujitsu, or playing tennis, or whatever, who cares, just something,
Hmm.
go to a chess, get in a chess club. If you It doesn't matter, but find ways that constantly challenge yourself to get better, because you can get comfortable, and get in a place where you know you have that top of the mountain feeling, but that doesn't necessarily always last.
Yeah.
And you need to practice being uncomfortable, and
Yeah.
practice having challenges, and
Mm.
practice finding ways through adversity to persevere and solve problems.
Mm. I love that. Love that. Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast today, Nathan. So this book comes out January the 10th, 2023. They can get it best place, Amazon.
They can literally get it anywhere books are sold. I'm actually with a publisher, so it's you can literally Google it: Barnes and Noble, Books a Million, Amazon, anywhere books are sold. And so yeah, it's a real blessing to have that rolling. And we're in the midst of as I'm last minute solving this problem. NoQuittersGuide.com will have some more stuff on there, but and all the places books are sold, etc. there too. But and I'm also really excited because we're doing a little mini course that'll be very inexpensive, that you can actually work through all the steps of this too. So it's like, okay, read the book, now what? Well, I want to help actually, like, how do we create these things that we're talking about?
Mm-hmm.
So we're working on that right now too. So it'll be cool.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you so much again, guys. Make sure you guys go check out in January 10th, 2023, No Quitter's Guide to Crushing Real Estate Investing and Building an Extraordinary Life with Nathan Brooks. It's been a blast, man. Thank you so much. God bless you, buddy.
Abs- God bless you too, man. I appreciate you having me on here, and appreciate people. Look forward to hearing what you think, and you can actually pre-order it right now too, so you don't have to wait. You can just go on wherever you buy them, and they'll pre-order them, and it'll be there. So, man, I just appreciate the conversation.
Sounds good, Nathan. All right, guys. Make sure you check that out. Go pre order it right now. We'll see you guys later.